What's up, YouTube fam? Robbie here, and today we're going to talk about my bag and the 5 discs that I think are most on the chopping block right now. On their way out, have the chance to leave and maybe never come back. Which could be exciting because change always is a good thing. But before we dive in, we have to ask the most important question of the day. How you doing today, Kayla? You having a good one?
So catch me if I fall.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we're here at George Ward Park, and this is a video that I've thought about doing for quite some time, and I think it's always important as an exercise for you to look at and analyze your bag and really ask sort of one question. Am I comfortable throwing this disc in a stressful situation? And most often, if you're looking at a disc and the answer is no, then we start to have to ask like more questions beyond that. But that's sort of our baseline. And I think going through the bag, there are lots of molds that I feel extremely comfortable with in the bag. And maybe we'll start the video by saying a couple that are like locked in, feeling really good. I enjoy them. And then we'll progress from there and see what we land on. What 5 are most on the chopping block? Hole 1, just trying to get loose. We're trying to open up and throw for the day. These first few throws are important. I like hole 1 on this course because it's very straightforward, it's very short. So you're not like super pressured into throwing like a really hard shot. You can kind of just go right at it. So we got a short basket, long basket. We got Precious Child, the Zone SS, and a polecat in the hands. And I'll go ahead and tell you that 2 of these are very safe. Precious Child skips up right close to the basket. We'll go polecat. Like polecat right over the basket. And Zone SS. Got it? Oh, I really liked the drift on 2 of those. I thought the polecat or the Zone SS had a very real chance of going in. So which of those 2 are the safe ones right now? It may shock you, but I think that the safest option is probably the polecat. I love having a lid in the bag. I love throwing those floaty up shots with it. If I need from a short distance something to just go incredibly straight, hit a gap, very close range, that's gonna be my disc most often. And the second one is actually the Zone SS for right now, because I'm throwing the Zone SS even though it's a 4-speed and it flies mid-range-esque because it's 4-speed. I'm liking the extra distance that I'm getting out of it, because like I said this in my video that if you haven't seen it, you can go check it out comparing the Zone SS, like was it necessary? But for me, the Zone SS flies more like a Luna OS than a Zone. So I'm just using it in that like overstable throwing putter slot, and I'm finding myself using it a lot. Which means we're only a few minutes into the video and you're already sort of hearing the shocker at one of the discs that might be the most in danger, and that is Precious Child. Precious Child is a 2020 Tour Series Ricky Wysocki pig that I've had in the bag for basically the entire time that I've been throwing pigs. When I decided I wanted to try pigs out, I bought 2 of these Ricky Tour Series pigs, had one of them in the bag. I went and played up at Wallace State Community College, the Lion's Den, and I believe it's hole 18 plays towards the water, and I threw a forehand upshot on that hole. I was doing that all day last Saturday. It's not really popping, or we're consistently trash at the same putt right now. But I launched the twin disc of this pig out into the water, ran in after it, wasn't able to find it, and this one went in the bag. And other than a brief slot where there was a possibility of me signing with Dynamic Discs before I signed with Innova, that pig has pretty much been in my bag the entire time. So why should I look at getting rid of a disc that's been around that long? Well, I think there's a couple reasons, and I definitely feel super confident. So like when I answer that question of if a sketchy shot is coming up, do I feel confident throwing that? Yeah, it's awesome having Precious Child that I know I can rely on, but it certainly is starting to have some inconsistencies that are making me lean on other discs, such as if the editing team really pulls up the footage and went really straight for a bit, and this was actually the most overstable option. But if I'm able to get the nose down on it and get a hold of Precious Child, then what ends up happening is that it just has barely any stability in it whatsoever. You can see there that it just drifted right the entire time. So I can't really use it much on short shots because I don't know how overstable it's gonna be. But if I really try to power up on it, it's really flippy. And so I can't trust that I have to hyzer flip it to go super straight. And I think it's time for that disc to retire. Now it's funny because the second disc that's on the chopping block is the Buzz. It's hard for me to say particularly why the Buzz needs to go. If anything, it's just trying to test out other options. But I think one of the best attractions that I've had to the Buzz all year is just how many Buzzes are available. I love the reliability of what a Buzz can do, because I can hang it and pull it wide and know that it's gonna have some sneaky stability and it's gonna come back. Or you can go with the Nathan Sacco Buzz, the Big Z Buzz, that is a little more understable. And it's just gonna have that beautiful stand-up flight that you're looking for. And it's not even like the Sacco Buzz is been in my bag for years. No, it went in my bag after Disc South, which was in March. And I think that's something that most of you watching can probably relate to, because you're like, well, Mr. YouTube man, there is this disc that I throw pretty well and it does things. I just don't know if it's the coolest disc out there. And I think that's basically where I'm at with the Buzz. Is it's good old reliable. It does what it needs to. And when I think about in a stressful situation, am I going to be comfortable throwing a Buzz? Most often, I actually feel like I'm stepping up to something else. I'm either going hyzer flip with my base plastic Dune, or I'm going a little more overstable with the Quake. And I wonder if I just haven't given the Buzz a fair shot. But I definitely think lots of you watching are in the same boat of the Buzz is really good, but if you're not a longtime Buzz lover, it just doesn't have that draw appeal. Now the next mold may actually shock quite a few of you. I included it in the thumbnail. The Felon. The Felon has been a tried and true mold in my bag for quite some time. But I think I look at this overstable 9-speed option, and I even have said on camera so many times, when a Sexton Firebird goes to sleep at night, it wakes up from the dream that it was a stock Felon. Because that's what's beautiful about Fusion Felons, is that Fusion Felons just go super straight, and then they have a reliable fade at the end of the flight. And this right here is a Lucid X Glimmer Eric Oakley Felon from many years ago, and it's just a reliable workhorse as well. This thing flies super straight. It is really overstable, just a beautiful flyer. And the Felon mold has been one that I've leaned on for a long time, but if I'm 100% honest, it is even more so than the Buzz on the chopping block for that boredom and that spike. And I wonder if adding interest actually makes me more excited to throw that disc. For instance, stepping up here, first forehands of the day, this is actually a little bit shorter distance because it's downhill than I necessarily would want to feel comfortable maybe throwing a Felon on. This would definitely be an easy Quake line for me. I want to put it on just a baby anhyzer, pulling it, and then hopefully let it fade out at the end of its flight. And that's great. We're down there, we've got a wide open 30-footer. But I know that's what's really fun about the Lucid X Glimmer is that this is silly overstable. This is why I don't really need to have a tilt in my bag. I probably use this disc once every 10 rounds on scramble situations. Maybe a little too much anhyzer for the downhill, but even there, it was already flattening when it got to those trees. I think it actually, there was a chance, I wasn't even saying anything, because I think there was a chance that it would have flexed out and fought through those trees if I hadn't had the branches. I think what's different about why the Buzz is on the chopping block versus the Felon's on the chopping block is that the Buzzes I've had in the bag all year, and they are just such a perfectly somewhat neutral to overstable disc. It is a disc that you kind of put on whatever angle you want to. You don't throw it necessarily on a stock angle and let it do the same thing every time, right? Like if my stock angle is hyzer and I wanted to flip up to flat, the buzz just isn't always going to do that unless I go with the Sacco buzz. Whereas the Felons, I've had the Felons in the bag for so long, I pretty rarely am stepping up to a shot and being like, oh man, it's gonna be super exciting when I throw this Felon here. They just do cool things. And I know people get upset about the Felon. They'll try to call the Felon a fraud and say that it doesn't, ooh, bee got me right in my face. They'll try to say that the Felon isn't overstable, and I think that, like, yeah, there are definitely 9 speeds that are more overstable than the Felon, but I feel the same way about like Raptors and things like that, where I think there are a lot of Raptors that are just super straight. I just don't have the excitement necessarily for getting stoked to grab a Felon and throw a cool shot with it. And while this video is me giving logic for why certain discs are on the chopping block in my bag, my hope that when we film this is that once again, you can ask that question of the discs in your own bag. Am I comfortable throwing this in a stressful scenario? And if I'm not comfortable throwing it in a stressful scenario, why? What is the reason for it? Why do I find myself not going to this disc as often? That's better. That was still short. You got to think the less you go to a disc, the less consistent it's going to be on the extra times that you go to grab it, which I can understand. And I think people will probably be a little confused in this video about that specific sort of topic point, because Fresh Child's on the chopping block because I definitely left it from when we turned it over on that shot. Don't worry, we got it back. So there's a fine line between, Mr. YouTube man, I'm comfortable with the disc, so why are you telling me to remove a comfortable disc? And I'm bored with the disc, so I don't really ever find myself going to it because there's always something new and exciting. New and exciting can feel inconsistent, but also if I'm not excited to throw the disc, I'm probably almost walking in with some subconscious hopes or expectations that it may not go well. And I'm not saying everyone does this, but I definitely think that some people do. I hope this doesn't go well so that I have a reason to remove it from my bag. And I think that's where I'm at with Felons, is I'm waiting for a day that Felons are a little unreliable in the wind or something like that, and that I have a reason to say, it's time for you to go. Next on the list, I don't think is going to shock anyone. I've had it in the bag for a few months. Unfortunately, I think it's just time for a couple reasons. The time lapse. I wanted to give the time lapse its time to shine in the sun for me. And I do think that I have reached an arm speed where distance drivers in the gyro tech don't feel bad necessarily. When I get a hold of a disc, it is 100%, we've got the spin, we've got the power to get a gyro disc to fly correctly, which I really enjoy. I think that we see that I can consistently get a trail up to speed when I'm able to get the grip strength right and hold on to it. But that's a non-issue. What I think is the two biggest reasons for why this is leaving is, one, I'm a mold minimalist to a fault. I like having a mold represented as much as I can, and honestly, drivers are probably the easiest place for that to represent itself. So oftentimes I feel like I'm having to make a very hard decision between, do I want to throw a Wraith, a Destroyer, or do I want to throw this time lapse? And because I just have so many more reps on my Wraiths and my Destroyers, the time lapse I'm walking in with a little bit of hesitancy towards, and that hesitancy could be causing some bad issues. But I think that the second reason why the time lapse is probably most on the chopping block / leaving is one that's going to resonate with so many of you watching this video. So I hope you're prepared, Bobby. I go back to the video where I first threw the time lapse. I was trying different distance drivers out at Veterans Park. I was launching them out there, and I remember throwing this time lapse. I got a hold of it. I got a great rip on it, and it just turned for me and then fought out at the very end. I mean, this thing went a country mile. And even later in that video, I had 1 or 2 rips that were not as solid as the first one, but they still went pretty well. Now, obviously, having had this disc in my bag for almost, well over 2 months, but quite a few, I have had days where I just don't got it. I do not have that dog in me. You know what I'm saying? Like, that dog is not barking. And on the days where I'm not hitting this as well, every single time I throw this, I wish it was a Wraith. I wish it was something flippier or not gyro, because while I think that once again, the highs of the disc are so high, the lows are also incredibly low, which makes me very, very hesitant to continue wanting to lean on it because I don't know which end of the spectrum I'm going to be on. And I would rather throw something that maybe doesn't have as high of highs, but its lows are certainly not as low. And that inconsistency, we're talking the difference of like, I have a 50-foot upshot versus I have a 100-foot upshot or a 150-foot upshot. So like here we have the time lapse and we're trying to rip it out into the open. And I know that if I get a hold of this disc, it's going to be perfect. It's in fact, if I really get a hold of this, this should be more disc than this hole calls for. But I can't always rely on that. And so I'm like instantly having this feeling of what's gonna happen, right? Coming into the shot. So we grip it, we get ready, and we threw it nose up there because that's what's happening. And that's the difference right there, is we threw it nose up and we held on to it okay, but we threw it nose up and now we've pushed and we threw it like 310 feet. Whereas if I just like, let's say go Procyon, hopefully. I didn't throw the Procyon as well. I came through quite a bit early. My chest was much more open, I feel like, on that shot. And the Procyon, we'll see when we get up there. Well, we're talking about the difference between here and back here, where we're outside of the circle, trying to make a bid, hitting the camera. Like I said, higher highs or the less highs and the not as low lows to find that consistency. So sorry, Simon. I'm just not that guy yet. And last but certainly not least, I think my lightweight distance wraith is probably the final disc on the chopping block. And it's funny because I could see myself having higher weight wraiths still in the bag. But really what this is functioning as me for is that right now, if I count the amount of distance drivers that I have in my bag, this makes 6. And when I count fairway drivers, 7, if we include the trail as this like middle ground in between. So if I keep the trail as a nice middle ground control driver, which is really what I view it as, then I have 6 distance drivers and 6 fairway drivers. And when I think about the inconsistencies that I have and that so many of you love to point out in my trail trials and just throwing discs in general, that I'm not the most consistent arm on the DG media side. What am I going to be able to throw a little more consistently? Well, I'm going to be able to throw these control drivers and fairway drivers a little bit more. So rather than having something like this, where the other day was playing and I absolutely mushed this thing and got a hold of it, well, because it's a lightweight wraith, 168 grams, it just never stood a chance of fighting out of its flight. And so it just burned over the entire time. So I think what this will likely end up becoming is another control driver option, maybe something with a little more stability than I have in my trail currently. That way, if I need distance or a big shot, I can lean on the trail or I can lean on this other disc depending on the conditions, instead of adding the possibility of more inconsistency. So I want to thank Clint and the guys for sending these over, because I mean, they're beautiful and I'm definitely keeping them in the collection for when that consistency rises. But like you'll see here, you got to recognize your game and you got to put discs in your bag that you know you can throw consistently. I mean, that's awesome. If it was back in that back pin position, beautiful. But I know that I can also grab my trail and not even feel like I have to throw it near as hard. We turned that one over a little bit, but if we're going to that back right pin position, the trail never even thought about coming out of that turn, and the wraith did fight out. So if I would have thrown the wraith a little more poorly, I think we don't even get to the midway across the fairway. I think it fades out and it's long. And the final caveat that I'll put for discs on the chopping block is, as someone who has a developed forehand, you also have to think about that. I am not a Joel Freeman of the world who feels comfortable forehanding and backhanding every single disc in my bag. There's just gonna be times where a disc is better suited for me for forehands. So my destroyers, lots of my destroyers are much more forehand discs for me than backhand discs. And I'm okay with having that speed or that allotment in the bag because I can lean on it. But you've got to identify your game and you've got to say, what type of disc do I throw really well? And let me lean into that. But obviously I'm not saying like take every Wraith out of your bag. Like I still have the Procyon in there and the Procyon flies like it's using Wraith. I'm just identifying that I don't need multiples. So that's gonna wrap it up for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know if there are reasons that you agree with or disagree with. I think that options 2 and 3, or reasons 2 and 3, are gonna be the ones people have the most questions or like disagreements with. But hopefully we can have some nice civil discussions about it all. So I want to say thank you so much for watching. Hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Please make it fantastic for someone else too. But for now, we're gonna leave you with the birdie.